Hi, I'm Paul Thurrott. I'm here again with my wife Stephanie. We're trying to make shorter videos. We meant to make a shorter video last time that was significantly longer than we had hoped. But I think for now we can cut these back. So this is a shorter topic. And this is kind of an all-encompassing thing, I would say, which is that you shouldn't do what we did, pretty much across the board.
Right.
There's a normal order of things when it comes to buying property overseas and in Mexico in particular. There's a normal order of things, I think, for the way we do things. You know, we go through different phases with places. I mean, I don't think we go any place where we don't consider, is this a place we could be?
Yeah. What would it be like to live in this place?
Yeah, right. Now, what we did do, as we keep saying, is we were in Mexico in January, and on the last day of a 2.5-week trip, we walked into an apartment and fell in love with it, and we bought it. And you should never, ever do that. In our defense, we did know by then that we liked that area. We had been to Mexico 3 times, which is not a lot, frankly, or at least in the modern years. Our intention was to come back and visit that area more and try to figure out, you know, where we wanted to be exactly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we looked at this place almost, well, really by accident. We were planning to go and just talk to a real estate agent and say, okay, we're interested in maybe down the road, 6 months, a year from now more, buying a property. What do we need to do exactly? What steps do you take to make that happen? And we turned the corner from the Airbnb that we had been staying at, and we walked into this place, and we both loved it. And then that put us in the position of figuring out how to make this happen out of order.
Right. So we've had to do things in a reverse order, and or in a different order. And we'll talk about some of that stuff in more detail later. But we also, actually, it's worth mentioning too, we got really lucky, right? There are scams out there. There are less legitimate businesses out there. There's all kinds of things that could go wrong. It was a scary thing for us to send money transfers to Mexico, especially in the beginning. But as we got to know the sellers, and we were very lucky also with Jose, the guy we got to represent us there, it felt safe and it felt legitimate. And especially when we went and saw the notary and you see the kind of legal process that occurs there, it's very similar to the United States. So there were things in place that were occurring to protect us as well.
Right.
You know, which was kind of nice. So normally, I should say, we did maybe the first couple of steps correctly, which is year and a half ago, I started researching Mexico. And that's kind of the first step. You do some research. Think about it. If it meets your criteria, which it did for us, and that's when I came to you and said, this is going to sound crazy, but this looks really interesting, then you think about going to that place, you know. And we did. We had 2 trips last year in 2021, in June and August. We went initially for a week, I guess, right, and stayed in Mexico City. And then the second trip was 2 weeks, and a week of that was in Mexico City. And we brought our kids because that was kind of our summer trip, you know. And then in January, we got serious about really doing the kind of in-place research and going and looking at all the different neighborhoods.
Yeah, because I think by January, one thing we had realized is that of the places we looked at in Mexico, Mexico City was the place that we liked. I think going into it before that, we thought maybe like San Miguel de Allende or maybe Puebla or Oaxaca. We wanted to look at some of these other cities, and we looked at some of them. We didn't look at all of them, but the more we looked and the more time we spent in Mexico City, we felt as though Mexico City was the place where we wanted to be.
And we know ourselves. We had been going to Europe for 15, 20 years every year, mostly cities. We've done some rural things. We know the logistics of getting from the city you fly to out to where you might be. It's not great. And yeah, we sort of knew the city thing was the right deal for us. And Mexico has other cities, but frankly, from an accessibility perspective, Mexico City made plenty of sense. So we did the research. We did 3 trips, totaling 1 month plus of time in the span of less than a year, which is great. And then everything went off the rails because we just found this place, fell in love, and, you know, stupidly or not, or whatever, we decided that we were going to buy it and damn the torpedoes.
We're going to make it happen.
We're going in. Now, normally, I think what I would advise, and what I would have done, you talked about we were going to that real estate agent, and what do we have to do? We would have gotten whatever that advice was and gone and done some of that stuff. We would have done more trips to Mexico City, tried to stay in Roma Norte, or maybe Condesa, since it's right next door, and just spent more time doing what we were doing. Knowing what you know now, based on the process of you paying bills or trying to pay bills, and us again being lucky because the place that we moved into is really helping us with things that, frankly, I think other places would have said, you're on your own. I mean, what's the first thing you would do? You've spent the time, you want to be. You don't have the place yet, right? Because that's insane. You do that later.
Right.
What's the first thing you would have done, or what we should have done?
Yeah, I mean, I would get temporary residency going first. If the process isn't completed, at least get it started so you have that in place. Just to make everything that you do in Mexico easier, and to give yourself 180 days if you need it when you go. You don't have to worry about how long you're going to be able to stay there either.
Yeah, so the residency gives you the ability to stay there for, I think as long as you want. Actually, we're up to a year until you have to renew it. But it also gives you the Mexican tax ID. And the Mexican tax ID is something that has come up several times for us already. It's come up when we try to get a phone. It's going to come up when we have to pay property taxes. It's probably come up with some of the other bills as well. And again, the place that we bought this from, the company, the guys, the brothers, have been so kind to us and have kind of made things work that frankly would not work for other people. So I think that temporary or permanent, if you want to, is job one. The other advantage to doing that, by the way, is the requirements for that go up every year. Once you get in, you're in. So this is off the top of my head, is probably not an accurate number, but I believe for an individual right now to get temporary residency, there's a couple ways you can do this, but on an income basis, it's $2,700 per month. I think for a couple like us, I don't think it's double. I think it might be $4,000 or some amount. They also will look at savings. It has to be cash savings. Okay, savings you can actually get a hold of. And I think the third way might be investment income related to retirement and so forth. We're not ready to retire, and we don't really have any easy way to access any of that money. So we'd have to try to get in on income at this point, I would say. And next year it's going to be more. The year after that's going to be more. So do that first. If you have any designs on moving to this place, or spending more time there at least, definitely get a temporary residency for sure.
Yep.
So that goes into the next two things, which we failed to do in a good way. A phone number. Now you need a Mexican phone number for so many things, and this is a cultural thing. People in Mexico use WhatsApp 100% for everything.
Yep.
To the point where you could get a doctor's appointment or talk to your doctor that way. They use it for everything. You can use WhatsApp as a U.S. resident.
Yeah.
They don't like to see that, even though it doesn't cost them anything because it's going through an app, so it's just going through internet service. It's not like they're calling long distance, but they don't like to see a U.S. phone number on there. They want to see a Mexican phone number. We did get a Mexican phone number. I have a feeling we're going to be getting another one, and then maybe another one. We'll see. This might be temporary. The problem is that we didn't have a Mexican tax ID.
Right.
So we actually can't start a monthly contract, a normal monthly contract like you would get at AT&T or any of the other companies. What we had to get was a pay-as-you-go account, which is a real temporary thing. It almost feels like a burner account. They put it on our phone, and we can't move it, which is crazy. I've never seen that before. But
right. And you also need it, in addition to WhatsApp, you need it for things like when you start, if you set up any kind of an account and they want to send an authorization to your phone number, you get the message that says, we'll send a 4-digit PIN or a 6-digit code to your cell phone.
Yeah.
It might not work if you have a US-based cell phone. It needs,
Right.
you have to enter a Mexican cell phone number to make that happen.
It's not a setup for the plus
Yeah.
01 or whatever. Yeah, you just can't do it. And then the final one, and this is the one we still don't have, is a bank account. And that's big for paying bills. really what you need is the debit card. You can't use a U.S. debit card
Right, or credit card in
or
some
a credit card,
cases.
yeah, to pay bills. My understanding is that it is very hard to get a Mexican bank account without a Mexican tax ID. Thus, you have to have residency. That's why everything kind of pours out of the residency.
Yep.
I also believe there is one bank that will let you do this without a Mexican tax ID. Our intention on that last trip was to try to make that happen. I don't remember the name of the bank. It doesn't matter at this point, because we'll figure this out on a later trip. But we ran out of time, even though we were there for an additional 5 days over what we
Right.
expected. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the gist of this. I mean, we started off on the right track. We, life took us in this kind of weird direction, but that research bit is really important. I remember thinking, I'm tired of research. I want to see the place now. I feel like now I'm just going to be checking off boxes. I've read and watched so much about these places, and I feel like I got it. But you have to do that kind of boots on the ground thing, and that's something we do. I mean, that's just what we do. We go back, we go back, we go back. And then after that, we kind of jump the shark. But more short-term rentals, maybe longer-term after that, if you feel like you can spend more time there, which right now for us is not easy. Temporary or permanent residency. You have to do that at the consulate here in the United States, or at what do you call it? A Mexican, not a consulate,
Embassy?
but an embassy. Yeah. You don't do that in Mexico, you do that here. And so that's something we'll be doing this summer. The local phone number, which we have, but and I feel like that's not our last one. And then the bank account.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
then you can think about buying a
Right.
place, but that's not what we did. So
And I mean, we've made it work out. We've been lucky, like Paul said, with the, the seller, the brothers, and our
yeah,
person Jose who represented us in this. It's worked, but it's been more complicated and more difficult,
right.
and more time consuming and more frustrating than it would be if we had done everything in the right order and we had everything in place we needed to go through step by step.
Right. And the reason we're doing this now is because we have other ideas for videos, like around things like the monthly cost of things and what our bills are. And you can't actually pay all the bills yet. So we will get to that. We've made steps in the right direction there. But it really, if you're serious about this kind of thing, it's important that you don't do it. We did.
No, do it in the right order.
Right.